Parents with grown children who no longer speak to you, what do you think led to the estrangement? My kids still speak to me, but not much. I'm better than I was, but I was a crap parent. Poverty was part of it. Hooking up with the wrong men, just to have a little more income, or not to pay for child care. Bed chemical decisions. I got myself cleaned up, got out of debt, got rid of the guy who was harassing my boy, and acting like the girl, our kid together, could do no wrong. My parents were atrocious, and I really thought I was much better. Actually, I was much better, but I wasn't enough better. It was hard for me to show love because I never experienced it myself. There were times I didn't hear from my boy for years, and honestly, I know I deserved that. I wrote him a long letter, apologized for my faults, and honestly have tried to be better. We have a much better relationship now, and while we are not super close, we have something, and I'm grateful. I was much better, but I wasn't enough better. Ding ding ding. I really wish a lot of parents could admit this. My own father was a pretty shit parent, and I try not to let my anger cloud the way I talk about him, because people are nuanced. However, even though there were times where he really shined as a dad, there were so many unforgivable, inexcusable moments that outweigh any good he ever did. When I talk about his parenting, I always say he did the best with the tools he had, but he didn't have very many tools, and he didn't care to acquire more. I'm happy you and your children are slowly working things out. It sounds like you've done a lot of very hard work on yourself. Rooting for all of you. Yeah, I can 100% see that my father was less abusive to me than his parents were to him, and full props to him for managing that much, but at the end of the day it was still abusive. It factored heavily into my decision not to have children, because I couldn't look at myself in the mirror and say the same thing. Sometimes children outgrow their parents whose development is halted. There's a really fantastic book called Adult Child 10 of Emotionally Immature Parents. It sucks to read it. A lot. Like, a lot. Worth every tear. My mother has borderline personality disorder and is basically just a very big teenager behaviorally and emotionally. It's like dealing with a child that can't admit they're wrong and everything is always incredibly dramatic for absolutely no reason. The weirdest thing about emotionally immature parents is they actually feel threatened when their children start to grow past them and question their behaviors, so they often blow up constantly on the kids. There's no point trying to talk to them about their issues because they'll redirect everything to make you the problem. Parents slamming doors and waking you up because they perceived you being tired as hating them. Clearly you're abusive and are trying to hurt them. Utterly exhausting people. It's especially frustrating when you know they're not trying to be a bad person, they just literally cannot understand what they're doing is hostile because they're mentally unwell. My mother will completely warp her memory of what's occurred as a defensive mechanism, and it's hard to deal with. An example is I came over and put the shopping away and knocked a cake tin over, but she thinks I threw the cake tin because I was angry at her. She can be such a nice person, but there's a deep hole within her, a vulnerable and damaged child that desperately protects itself from the trauma of what she's lived through, and this extends outwards in a harmful way. She'll never accept her issues or seek recovery, and it means I'll never truly connect with her. I'll be there as I can in a healthy way for as long as possible, but there's a deep sadness beneath everything that never goes away. They made a documentary about this. It's called Arrested Development. Sad daughter here scanning to see if by some miracle her parents show up in the comments. Father with young children looking for what not to do. Be honest. Apologize when you fuck up, everyone messes up, a simple "I'm sorry" would have been amazing. At least I think it would be. Don't rug sweep literally every single issue like it's an Olympic sport. Don't beat the shit out of your kids. Don't call them worthless or stupid. Spend quality time with them often, it doesn't have to be complicated, play catch or go for a walk or read a book together. Follow through on your promises, don't just gaslight them into thinking there was never a promise. I could go on all night. Father to the daughter that cut off contact with her mother, my wife, here. Mother is, still, a narcissist, emotionally and mentally abused the kids until they moved out one by one. Mother also a functioning alcoholic. The daughter moved to a different state, cut off all contact with her mother, vowed to never let her see the grandchildren. Mother spent months raging, trying weak apologies, saying things like, "I'm sorry you're upset. And you need to grow past what happened." And, to me, she is stuck in the past. Daughter and I are very close, I FaceTime with the grandbabies regularly, and visit on holidays. Knowing this, why are you still married to your wife? Stayed during the marriage so as not to leave the children with her, and I didn't trust the court system to grant me custody. Also suffered from depression as a result of her abuse to me. Being in the military, I thought, the next move will help. The next duty station will help. One of the kids moving out will help. If I treat her nice, it will help. It never helped. I was so used to enduring, I never knew what it was like to be safe. Kids are all moved out now, so they're safe. Couple years ago I got to therapy and meds, and was finally able to take control of my life, especially the finances. A year later I'm much better, in control of my life, ignore anything she does or attempts to trigger me. I was able to pay off $35,000 in credit card debt that she never paid. I was so used to enduring, I never knew what it was to be safe. Thanks for protecting your children. It must have been really hard on you. Hope you go on protecting yourself, good health to you. My dad said almost the exact same thing to me. She would have had full custody and it would have likely meant a worse life. Thank you for protecting them from a daughter that was protected. I do wish you both would take care of yourselves and just leave, but I understand how hard that can be. We want you to be happy too. My father recently died with 5 THs of his kids talking to him. Both of those two had considered cutting contact. I had a few emails exchanges with him before he died to discuss why he had never met my daughter. He made excuses for what he could and denied the rest. He couldn't live with his actions, I think. Anyway, he told everyone that all his kids were just mentally ill and it wasn't his fault. I think he honestly believed it. Then he ended up stealing 5-6 THs of the money my mom had left to us kids, with him as trustee, and gave it to his second wife. Guy was a fucking prince. He made excuses for what he could and denied the rest. He couldn't live with his actions, I think. Anyway, he told everyone that all his kids were just mentally ill and it wasn't his fault. I think he honestly believed it. Anyway, he told everyone that all his kids were just mentally ill and it wasn't his fault. I think he honestly believed it. I read an excellent comment the other day by you random guy says bro on are raised by narcissists on the topic of why these types of parents don't actually think they've done anything wrong. TLDR, these types of parents don't see you as a person with feelings and needs, but as an object they own. They don't remember their abusive actions because to them you were never more than a thing, like a car they show off when it's new and shiny, or freak out on when they're pissed off. Have you ever been stuck in traffic? It's hot, nothing is moving, and you're late. It's frustrating, and maybe you lose it a little. Scream, swear, slap the steering wheel. The thing you have to understand and remember is that, to your parents, you're not a person. You don't have thoughts, feelings, desires, or needs. You're a thing that they own. They didn't do nice things for you as a child because of love, they did it in the same way you change the oil in your car, just to keep the thing quiet and playing its role. Now, back to traffic. Do you feel guilty for slapping your car? Does the incident haunt you? Or did you not even remember it until I mentioned it? Do you feel like you abused your car? Do you feel like you owe it an apology? That's your parents. They don't think about it. They don't remember it. It was nothing to take note of. No one got hurt. They were frustrated and slapped a thing they owned, just like they've slapped the TV. To them, they did nothing wrong. There was never any abuse, and no one was ever hurt. Everything flows from one simple truth: you are not now, nor have you ever been, a real person, to them. If you look at every word, every action, every event through that lens, it all suddenly makes sense. They never loved you, they loved the idea of having you. They were never proud of you, they just liked bragging about the nice thing they owned. They were never kind to you, they just wanted to show off what good care they take of their thing. I have a very nice car. It goes very fast, and is very shiny. I use the best wax, and give it the best gas. I have a smart kid. They do well in school and sports. I give them the best room, and buy the newest games. That fundamental breakdown is why it's pointless to play their stupid games. It's literally impossible to win, because they don't even recognize it's a game. They literally have more empathy for a Sims character they created, because there's something they recognize as vaguely human about them, and they'll toss those characters in the pool to drown for fun. The thing you have to understand and remember is that, to your parents, you're not a person. You don't have thoughts, feelings, desires, or needs. You're a thing that they own. They didn't do nice things for you as a child because of love, they did it in the same way you change the oil in your car, just to keep the thing quiet and playing its role. Now, back to traffic. Do you feel guilty for slapping your car? Does the incident haunt you? Or did you not even remember it until I mentioned it? Do you feel like you abused your car? Do you feel like you owe it an apology? That's your parents. They don't think about it. They don't remember it. It was nothing to take note of. No one got hurt. They were frustrated and slapped a thing they owned, just like they've slapped the TV. To them, they did nothing wrong. There was never any abuse, and no one was ever hurt. Everything flows from one simple truth: you are not now, nor have you ever been, a real person, to them. If you look at every word, every action, every event through that lens, it all suddenly makes sense. They never loved you, they loved the idea of having you. They were never proud of you, they just liked bragging about the nice thing they owned. They were never kind to you, they just wanted to show off what good care they take of their thing. I have a very nice car. It goes very fast, and is very shiny. I use the best wax, and give it the best gas. I have a smart kid. They do well in school and sports. I give them the best room, and buy the newest games. That fundamental breakdown is why it's pointless to play their stupid games. It's literally impossible to win, because they don't even recognize it's a game. They literally have more empathy for a Sims character they created, because there's something they recognize as vaguely human about them, and they'll toss those characters in the pool to drown for fun. My mom and I stopped talking for a 14-year stretch. When my son was very little, we were on vacation with my mother. My wife and I had a small disagreement about his breakfast, and afterwards, my mother pulled me aside and said I should take my son with me to a hotel for a few days to teach my wife a lesson. I disagreed, telling her that I didn't feel that I should be taking marital advice from a woman who had been divorced 3 times. She didn't take it as well as you might think. We finally started taking again when my grandmother passed away and have been fine ever since. I do always love when my parents, both of whom have been married 3 times, have tried to tell me something I'm doing wrong in my relationship with my then GF, now wife, which has involved exactly 0 divorces for either of us. And no, at no point is it, I know this because I've learned from my mistakes and see you repeating a mistake I made. It's literally always one of them trying to push me to do something which absolutely was something they did in a failed marriage early on. Not me, but I was on a Facebook group a few weeks back where this older woman in her 60s claimed to be estranged from her kids, and she didn't know why. She assumed that the kids were hard to deal with, and she did her best, but no matter what they were always out to get her or feel that she was being aggressive. When someone made a comment or suggestion saying that the way she phrases things may contribute to it based on how she spoke, this woman flipped out on the person who commented. When I followed saying if that's how she speaks to them, then I can see why they may feel that way, she flipped out on me saying I don't know her story and that she was the nicest person she ever knew. Some people just genuinely don't have the mental capacity to learn how to grow. This type of question seldom gets a meaningful reply from the estranged parents. They'll insist they don't know, they'll blame their adult offspring's spouse. Sometimes they'll hint at reasons, then dodge describing what those reasons are. The Isendai blog describes the phenomenon in the Missing Reasons essay. When denial runs that deep, when avoidance is that in-ground, a person can't be separated from it any more than they can be separated from their bones. It's why I aimed this site at estranged adult children and outsiders, because members of estranged parents forums can't be helped. Their entire system of defenses is designed to make them unsavables. Most people who estrange from their parents try everything they can think of to repair the relationship before cutting ties. There's a great subreddit for that community at our estranged adult kids. I know a woman whose son cut off contact about 2 years ago. She 100% blames his spouse. From what I hear, I don't know him. I only hear her side of the story. She very much relied on him for most of her affection. When he got married, I believe the wife helped him stand up to her. She is sort of a crazy person that will say they loved each other very deeply, then quickly add, but it was not incest. WTF? We didn't ask. They had a baby that had to stay in the NICU for a month and they would not let her visit. She was furious. And of course, she had COVID at the time. now he has more or less cut contact and she is a mess. She is constantly saying she has no idea what happened, but whatever it is definitely the wife's fault. No, honey. She is helping him. My daughter doesn't talk to me as much anymore. She moved out when she was 22. I had psychosis episodes for 5 years all of a sudden, no history of mental illness like that, just your old run-of-the-mill anxiety and depression, and after her having severe mental issues dealing with the aftermath of a tragedy, I got the mental issues and I had to be hospitalized for suicide attempts. It traumatized her. I understand why she pulled away, even if it was for something I couldn't help, and I don't blame her. My last attempt was in November, so I hope with time we will be able to be close again. I text her every few days to tell her that I love her, and she responds in kind. We text about life a few times every few months, but we used to be best friends before the tragedy that upended her life and then mine. It altered the course of our lives. I was an asshole, shitty parent and an alcoholic. He stood over me during an argument when he was 18, he was 6 feet 4 inches and I am 5 feet 6 inches, and scared the shit out of me, so I kicked him out. That was 14 years ago and he hasn't spoken to me since. I have not been able to apologize, to show him how much I have changed for the better, nor how different I am with his younger brothers, also adults now, teenagers at the time. I miss him every single day, however, it's his choice and I have to live with that. Thankfully his brothers and I have a wonderful relationship. It took a lot of hard work and tears, but I am so grateful they are a huge part of my life, along with 2 grandchildren now. You know what, good for you for recognizing that you were the problem and for not pushing a reconciliation. Sending love to my fellow survivors who were raised in a JW home and are scanning the comments. You're not alone. May I? I grew up an orphan during the Great Depression, and there was no way in hell that my kids would have an easier life than me. I would do everything in my power to recreate my joyless, deprivation-filled childhood for them so that they would know firsthand what I went through. I would offer no emotional or financial support, because I had none. I would crush any interests they had, and sabotage their every action with the ferocity of Genghis Khan. I would do things to them that in today's world would be on the news. I would put on a cheerful and friendly face to the outside world, and immediately revert to my evil self at home. I never tired of raging and shrieking. I would be completely shameless at all times. I thought nothing of living a life of deceit, yet paint myself as a devout religious person. I lived a life of agonizing pain, never had a moment of love, laughter, peace, or safety, never knew where my next meal was coming from, so was it really so awful that I continued that tradition with my own kids? I skipped her funeral. I know a family very well, and the daughter's boyfriend molested granddaughter. Mom actually walked in on it, called police, he was arrested. Next day, after he called begging and crying mom, forced daughter to recant and he returned home. Grandmother stepped in and made sure the pedophile POS was held accountable. The state got tired of grandmother hounding them. Emergency court hearing. Mother was given an ultimatum: leave him or lose your 3 kids. Thankfully she chose her kids. But the daughter blamed her mother for ruining her marriage and still doesn't speak to her mother 20+ years later. But the grandmother doesn't give a shit as long as she helped save her granddaughter from years of rape. My mother literally couldn't tell you. I don't mean she doesn't know, I've told her, but she's clinically delusional and actual narcissist. Straight up rewriting memories as they happen, to the point she thinks we're plotting against her when we agree and she doesn't. She claims my partner is why. She told my family I was on drugs. Ironic, since she's on just about everything and can't see our youngest brother without supervision anymore. I don't know what she did for that, but due to my own childhood, I can guess, and it's not good.